Okay, everyone. Sorry about that. Had a phone call come in. You may or may not know, I took a seasonal part-time job over Christmas, and I was hoping to stay on. It was retail, a national chain. Loved working there, but I had issues with one manager, and it's no surprise I am 100% disabled. And she had been extremely not nice with me, like rude, condescending, all this other stuff. And I talked to her about it a couple times. Sorry, I put motion on. I talked to her about it a couple times, like, hey, this is, you're. I actually at one point said, why do you hate me? And she's like, oh, I don't. She's like, you're just not efficient. Well, she sent me home early that day. And I'm like, what do you mean not efficient? I asked her the next day. She's like, well, you're not fast enough. I'm like, I am disabled. I just had my lumbar spine fused in August. I am literally moving as physically fast as I physically can. The next day, it was a floor set, so the store was closed. I was sent home early because I wasn't fast enough, and I was slowing the whole store down. Without customers, I was in my own little corner, not in anybody's way. So they sent me home early, which is a violation of the EEOC, so Equal Opportunity. It is also a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I lodged a federal complaint. I will be lodging a complaint with the state as well. And I talked to the district manager, store manager, everything. Supposed to not work with this chick. Then they tell me they can't get the schedule. A whole big clusterfuck. And so the ethics hotline thing just called me back. But she called me to say that she didn't have time to meet with me today, which I don't understand that. So that was what happened. I'm going to go ahead and pick back up where we were with Judge Middleton again, right where we were at. And I have to go turn down the water, or the stove for the soup's starting to boil over. So we're going to get going with that.
Give it to me. I'm not sure which, how many, well, we'll see if you can see this.
It's just one.
This reports to be apartment 22.
Yes, that's our understanding.
Can you see that?
I cannot.
All right. We have a better way to do this, but that's not the greatest.
It's pretty hard to see. It looks like shadows to me at this point. Sorry.
Well, it's not your fault. We didn't have the greatest ability to present it.
So you aren't doing any of the drywall?
Drywall repairs? No.
Yes. Okay, you're just cutting it out.
Correct.
And what about like when you are inspecting up in the attic and on the in the walls, are any of the studs wet?
Yes.
And how do you go about drying those out?
Wet studs, being hardwood, they don't absorb water. So those dry on their own, usually within about an hour or two of removing whatever's wet around them.
Okay, and is that same true with respect to any of the ceiling trusses?
The trusses are all 2x4, so yes.
Same thing then, they dry out as soon as you remove the water?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, nothing further.
All right, we're going to take a recess. Mr. DeSaro, same thing. You're free to go or stay if you wish to watch. But before I lose anybody, oh, did you have more questions?
Yeah, and I'm
there's-
sorry.
Don't need to apologize. I got ahead of myself. Mr. DeSaro, would you unmute your microphone once again? Mr. Van Eck has a couple more questions.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. DeSaro. Do you take action in order to, you discussed earlier mildew, and I don't know if you said mold or not. Did you review this property for mildew or mold because of the wetness?
That's always concern. With floods, mildew is almost always guaranteed. That's very normal. Most of the time we get mildew that is within carpeted surfaces.
Duh.
The wet
Seriously,
carpet
duh.
has been removed, so we shouldn't have any mildew in there. And typically mildew, we start to smell mildew a couple days in. Mold, right around about the 2-week mark. So those walls being dry within the first 2 days, we kind of avoided mildew there. And then the areas we cannot get airflow, those are those ceilings. Those are the ones that have to be removed.
Okay, just in case nobody, like, if, I don't know if you've never smelled mildew or not, but if you don't know, it's that there's that damp, musty smell. That's what mildew smells like. And mold ends up turning almost more rank, but also sort of smelling like dirt, kind of. Anyways, just want to give perspective as to you can actually smell mildew when it starts going.
So we shouldn't have any mildew or any mold concerns there because that all will be removed and put out in the dumpster.
Okay, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. You're good to go. Again, I'll mute your microphone. You're welcome to stay and watch. Before I take a break, I want to make sure how many apartments I've got represented here. Babette is here and Brianne is here. Brianne was apartment 13. Babette was apartment 20. What other units are represented here? All right, ma'am.
Number 24,
What's your first name?
Monica, Monika.
Anybody else?
Number 18, Larry.
Anyone else?
14, Tom Keith.
Anyone else? All right, so we've got 5 units represented here. Either here. All right, let's take a recess. We'll take about 13 minutes or so. We'll come back at 10:45 and see where we are. What other witnesses do you have, Mr. Van Eyck?
No, just Mr. Houston and Ms. Hensley, the manager and the hired manager.
All right, let's take a break and see what we've accomplished before lunch. Oh, we've also got Allie Smith. Ms. Smith, your unit number?
We're in apartment 7.
And Mr. Carmy, you told me, but I forgot. What's your unit number? Apartment 22. So we have 7 of the 23 units represented. All right, let's take a recess. We'll be back in about 15 minutes. Okay, I actually have the next video ready to go. Let me get this going. Full screen. Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to get this done. So, if anyone wants to know, we're having potato soup for dinner. I was setting that up while I was away trying to deal with that phone call. So this is after that little break. So we're back to this. And if anyone wants to know, I'm knitting another pair of socks for my nephew, my 4-year-old nephew. I gave him his first set, and my sister has to take them off his feet when he's asleep. So he needs a couple more pairs. So you'll probably be seeing me knitting a lot of socks for the next conceivable future. All right, well, here we go.
Okay, let me,
All right, everyone is back.
never mind.
Close enough. Let's go back on the record. We were engaged in some additional examination of zoning officer Coolman. I didn't know if either party had any additional questions for Mr. Coolman or ready to move on to our next witness.
You know, I don't have any issue.
All right, Ms. Seaver, who would you like to call next?
I'd like to call Ron Belair, please.
Or I'm gonna need some more.
Right now?
Yes. Sir, do you swear or affirm that any testimony you're about to give in this matter to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Please have a seat. Just wait for the reporter for just a minute. I sent her on a mission. Hopefully I won't need that many, but
Well,
thank you.
we'll just stop you up here, so that next time we'll have them.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Ronald Belair, Bellaire.
Thank you. Seaver?
You're the electrical inspector for the village of Centerville and numerous other municipalities, is that correct?
I work as a contract inspector, yes,
How long have you been employed as a contract electrical inspector?
19 years.
And now we're going to find out just how
You heard the
incompetent
testimony today about
these
the
contractors
conditions of this particular
are,
building.
in my opinion.
Yes,
And we had discussed the difference between the various types of electrical cables. Can you
Yes.
please explain, based on the testimony that you heard earlier?
so going into this courtroom earlier today, when questioned about the different types of wiring methods, if we had a conduit raceway system with what we typically would call THHN style wiring, that wiring is moisture resistant. In the earlier testimony, Mr. Harrison said that it was NM cable, which people commonly call Romex. Romex is a brand, but that type of cabling is not moisture resistant. The actual outer jacket will absorb moisture and it has a paper wrapping inside it. The paper will hold moisture and grow mold forever. Once it's immersed in water, it's no longer serviceable.
And does it have to be immersed in water or just?
I would say a sprayed over time would.
So, prime example of what this guy knows his shit, right? He's an inspector, he's licensed, he clearly has field experience and has the book knowledge. This is the type of contractor that this landlord should be hiring, because if they're going to get inspected at this point, especially if it's this inspector, because I believe she said he's for the city of Centerville, they're screwed. Because he heard him testify, and he's now laying it out that they did shit wrong. So, yeah, it's about to get good.
Would absolutely soak through the outer jacket.
Okay, so
It
with
is permeable.
respect then to the electrical in this particular building, would you require a permit
Absolutely,
And would you require inspections?
absolutely.
And what would you be looking for?
I would look for signs that moisture did enter into those wires, even at the junction points, like the light fixtures that we had talked about, if the globes were full. The junction box above that light fixture, if there is any moisture at the paper there is no real way to test the full length of the cable without destroying it. The people that have already jumped ahead and made an attempt to dry things out have actually caused more problems than it would have if they'd had an inspection right away.
Okay, so could you go in and inspect that today?
If I went in and inspected today, anywhere that they had removed and replaced drywall, I would say that that wiring would need to be replaced.
Okay, and you don't have a permit, so you really don't have permission to be in the building at this
Correct.
point.
If I was at that site today, I would be trespassing.
Okay.
Bingo.
Now, with respect to the panels missing and the water that potentially could have been in the panels or into the electrical units, can you please describe what may happen there?
There's a lot of misconception there. Our old favorite saying is water and electrical doesn't mix. But if we use distilled water, distilled water is not conductive. The actual conductive part of water is the minerals content in the water.
I did not know that.
Although we may get circuit breakers and panels and the bus board wet and dry it out thoroughly, the minerals are going to remain. They can be conductive, they can be corrosive. Since Hurricane Katrina, the industry standard is we automatically replace circuit breakers and panel boards that have been in wet conditions.
So I actually didn't know that about distilled water. It's very interesting, but it makes sense. One of the big minerals they're talking about would be iron, and we do happen to have a lot of iron, lime scale, stuff like that. That's all conductive. So that's what he's referring to, and unfortunately, that we have a lot of that here in Michigan.
And in terms of this particular building, you don't know what's been in wet conditions or not?
Correct.
Could you tell if you went out and looked?
I can't answer that without seeing it. I mean, we may see water spots, but we may not.
So if there's information that there was water coming through certain things, would that cause you more concern or reason to go and inspect?
The information we got this morning would cause me concern. And yes,
And you would have required a permit prior to any kind of inspection or changes that have been done at this point, correct?
not my decision to make. State Public Act 230, our Construction Code Act from 1972 sets a threshold for electrical permits at $100 parts and labor. So the state law does provide for that.
So at this point, you need to go in and see the extent of the damage before you can make a recommendation as to what needs to be done.
Right.
So, okay, that thing about the permit, clearly more than $100 of damage or whatever has been more than $100. And if it's not, it should have been done. Obviously, he talked about the different types of wire, so I forgot what it's all called, but yeah. So they should have gotten a permit. They should have had that inspector in there from the beginning. This just goes again to show the incompetence, in my opinion, of this landlord hiring contractors that apparently don't know their shit. And it just goes to show how much the landlord is, in my opinion, a slumlord. Literally doesn't care. He just wants that money. So yeah, this just makes it absolutely glaring that this is the situation.
Do you know whether that building has, as you heard it testified to this morning, is safe?
I can't answer that.
Do you know whether there's any potential for fire?
I can't answer that one.
Not till you get in, huh?
Right.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
That's exactly how that works. You have to inspect first.
So do you know the licensed master electrician that testified?
I absolutely know him. I
And
consider him a friend.
and trustworthy, knows what he's
Yes.
doing?
He's competent. He's honest.
Whoa. I did not expect that one. He's friends with that electrical contractor. So yeah, then he absolutely should have called and said, "Hey, I need an inspection." If they're friends, like, or call him and just be like, "Hey, I know you're the inspector. What's, do I need an inspection first? Do I need permits? Whatever." He says he's competent and trustworthy. I don't know, guys. This actually kind of leaves me sort of speechless, which is hard to do. Yeah. This is just, I honestly, I don't know what to think.
So when he testified that he didn't see any real dangers right now, that's about as good as we're getting from this hearing, right? Because you can't testify because you haven't seen it.
That's correct.
Now, whether he needs to take a permit or not, that's something that will have to be answered by him as the licensed master electrician and you to work through that process.
Actually, he could be cited right now. It's a 90-day misdemeanor for him to even start electrical work without a permit.
Okay, but it sounds like he's trying to do that, and that's between you and him.
I would be the issuing authority, yes.
Okay,
Holy shit! Ho! I didn't see that one coming. I know you guys didn't see that one coming. Holy crap! So yeah, it's criminal, and he would possibly have to charge his own friend. That's gonna be messy. But I think it also goes to show how serious this issue is, and it is very, very serious. So, not that I necessarily want someone to go to jail. I definitely think that maybe there should be some sort of a fine. Just on the principle, because he said he didn't know if he needed a permit and all this other stuff. So I hate saying he needs to be taught a lesson. I hate having that said when it comes to court, but there needs to be some little kick in the butt with him to be like, oh, you're not, make him, oh, nope, I'm definitely not going to do that again. So, yeah, I did not expect that one.
so outside of the permitting issues, it sounds like the electrical's safe enough for people to move back into.
I can't answer that.
Okay, but he did, and he said yes.
But then he's not the inspector.
And again, he also said that the NM cable had been immersed in water and he felt it was safe, when the industry standard and our code section 334.12 tells us that that's not
The inspector is the one that can say you can go back in.
Was it?
Well, if you spray water on it, that I consider that immersed in water.
Okay, so if we want to play definitional, immersed could also mean underwater
It
for a
could,
period of time.
it could, but I didn't use the term submerged in water. I said immersed in water.
Okay, but when you're reading the code.
Okay, this lawyer is fucking really trying to play semantics here. Whoa, if I say submerged, it's going to be underwater. It doesn't matter what your interpretation is. It is what is the universal interpretation as far as with electricians or in electrical work. So, dude, Mr. Lawyer, that I really, really, really do not like at this point. Like, honestly, I don't like to say I hate him, but it's bordering on that. Stay in your lane, dude. Just stay in your fucking lane and do your shittiest job at trying to be an asshole and fucking defending your slumlord client, in my opinion.
You got two choices.
When I'm reading the code, it says wet or moist locations.
Okay, well, it's been dried out. It sounds like it was a few hours.
Yeah.
So does that automatically make it pliable and no
But
longer?
wet and moist locations is the exact term in the code, and we just looked it up at lunch.
Okay. Have you been in other buildings that didn't replace the wiring and people have not been hurt or hasn't? been
Objection
I
irrelevant.
can't answer that.
Objection relevant.
The
Seriously.
breaker, you haven't been to the building to look at the breakers?
The last time I was in.
Objection
this
asked and
building was
answered.
March of 2020.
Oh, so you didn't even go when they had the big temporary order and they removed all
I
the
was
tenants?
not available on that short of notice.
Asked and answered.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you. Thank you. You can step down.
Pardon me making judgments on my law tube degree.
Please.
Good afternoon. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. State your name.
John Dobberteen, Dobberteen,
And your occupation?
plumbing and mechanical inspector.
Ooh, here we go
How long have you
again.
been employed as a plumbing and mechanical inspector?
This
20
is so
years.
interesting. It's
And
getting
have
good.
you were one of the ones that accompanied Mr. Coolman in on the administrative search warrant, correct?
Yeah.
And can you please describe from your perspective what it is that you saw?
I saw evidence of broken pipes, boiler system that was inoperable, sprinkler system that was unknown if it was turned on or off or had any leaks.
And you've heard the testimony today in terms of what may have been accomplished between the time of your inspection and today, correct?
Correct.
And as the plumbing and mechanical inspector, would you have required permits to undertake the efforts that have been described today?
Not
Absolutely.
as far as repair work, what
Oh.
was concerning was the plumbing end of it, that there were broken pipes, the water had to be shut off. Then we learned that there's potential backflow on the city water meter, which could mean basically the municipal water system could be contaminated. So what would be required is a safety inspection to go in back and ascertain if there's any cross connections that could be contaminating municipal water.
And the way that you would know,
Okay, so I guess I was wrong about the plumbing needing a permit, just repairs, but the backwater going like that actually makes sense. I've actually had that happen before. Well, not to me personally, but where my parents lived, they had something go wrong with the city system, and they had a possible backwash or whatever you want to call it, backflow. So they had to do like, I don't know, 24-hour boiling thing, whatever. So that actually does make a lot of sense. Obviously, my dad's an electrician. I know about electrical stuff. My mom's dad was a plumber, but he passed away long before my mom was 13. So, but my dad hates plumbing, so I really didn't learn a whole lot about that. But this is interesting. This case is interesting, but I'm also still frustrated with this landlord.
a potential backflow is how?
Well, visual inspection of the various fixtures in the complex and evidence, the village said that the meter was running in reverse.
Okay, so you have a reading of negative, and that's the reason that you.
Oh!
Well, unless there's a problem with the meter.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And with respect to this particular building, you haven't had an opportunity to go do a backflow check, correct?
No,
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't think about that.
And at the present time, is that sprinkler system, is it a wet system or a dry system?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, you know there's one in there, but you don't know how
Yeah, I
it's.
saw the heads. I didn't track back the piping.
Okay, would you be the one that would be able to determine?
Okay, in case you're wondering, I do know about this. The sprinkler system being wet or dry. Wet would be water. Dry would be some sort of, if you've ever seen a smoke or fire extinguisher, they have a couple different kinds. One is more wet, but then there's also like chemical, it's not chemicals, but it's like a powder. You'll actually also see it sometimes used like for wildfires. So that's what they mean by wet and dry.
Determine whether the sprinkler system was working?
No,
It would be a different code official?
sprinkler system contractor would determine the reliability of it.
Okay, and then a contractor would then sign off on
Yeah,
that it's presently working. Okay. So in terms of what has been testified to today, do you have any reason to believe that there is or could be problems still within this particular building?
well, again, the fact that the meter was stated to have run backwards says there's potential contaminated water entering the municipal water system. That's basically the basis for having the water shut off to begin with.
Okay, so your biggest concern would be that backflow situation.
Right,
And
Did you
that's a
inspect
very,
that,
very big
if there
thing.
was a permit pulled, or do you need a permit?
sure.
You could go over and inspect it if they were to allow you. Okay, thank you, nothing further.
Let's talk first about the backflow. You testified that it could be a problem with the meter or it could be backflow, right?
Right.
So when you're talking about backflow, you said it has a potential of contaminating the city or village water system.
Right.
Asked and answered, but let's see how you can try and further obscure what the situation is, because your client, in my opinion, is a slumlord. Like, seriously, this attorney really pisses me off. I get it. Like, he's trying to do the best for his client. He's advocating for his client. But there's advocating for your client and being a good attorney, and then there's also being a slime ball. And this dude's being a slime ball, in my opinion. I don't know the guy. This is my opinion based on just what we're seeing here with this case. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Obviously, my blood pressure's going to be too high. I got high knee pressure, guys, just so you know. High knee pressure.
You know how much backflow there was or how much they claim there to be?
I heard anywhere from 1,000 gallons to.
Objection to hearsay.
Almost nothing. I was just told the meter ran in reverse.
Okay, but you don't know how much.
No.
If the meter ran in reverse and if they, out of these pipes, somehow contaminated the village water system, that's for the village as a whole, not the tenants in this building, right?
I'm sorry?
The contention is, hey, they might be missing something in the plumbing system that caused the meter to run backwards.
Right.
Meaning water has flowed from the pipes of this building, maybe to the city water system.
Right.
It could be minimal, or it could be your top number was 1,000 gallons. Well, we really don't know what that amount is. If that's the case, aren't we really talking about the people that live in the units being okay? It's just the other people in the city may have been contaminated.
Well, everybody would be contaminated if there was a contaminant in a potable water system.
Okay, so you don't even know if there's a contaminant. You just had a backward run on a meter.
Right.
Okay, now you're literally trying to split hairs here. You just try to spin it that it's the township's issue, but it would be the building owner would be the one that would be responsible because your shit wasn't done. You haven't been inspected. You haven't had your permit of occupancy or what the fuck ever since for 3 years. So yeah, no, your client's still on the hook with this, dude. Jesus Christ.
So we don't know whether that backwater was freshwater, potable, or not potable.
You know, and that's why we would need a safety inspection just to visually check for cross connections in the system.
So it may mean absolutely nothing.
Maybe.
The licensed plumbing, you said you're unsure whether they would need a permit or not. Is that right?
Well, at the time, it was, we were just talking repair work. The permit I referenced would be for a safety inspection to get the water turned back on. All the other municipalities I work for, when they shut the water off at the meter, they require safety inspections to check for cross connections before they'll turn it back on.
Do you know if that's the case here?
No,
It's not the case here.
I don't know if it's the case or not.
So really, as I understand your testimony is they may or may not need a permit. There may or may not be contamination and you really don't know.
I would say they need a permit for safety inspection so we can check for cross connections.
I thought you said you're not sure if this village has that or not.
That's my call is section 108 in the plumbing code says if I deem the system unsafe, I can require the inspection to recertify it.
So are you saying?
Dude, Mr. Shit Attorney here, you are completely skewing everything he is saying. He said that there needs to be an inspection. Now, I guess you have to have a permit for inspection or whatever, but you're sitting here trying to make it sound like he doesn't know what he's talking about because he hasn't been on site. Well, he hasn't been on site because your client didn't do the shit he was supposed to do. So, yeah, stop trying to freaking skew this the way it's not. Oh, he makes me so mad.
That in this case, to me, running backwards, you're deeming that that is required?
I'm saying yes.
Oh, so.
Seriously?
What steps for a safety inspection, what does that include?
Visual inspection, talking to the plumber, finding out what work they actually did. Looking at the boiler, looking at the certification on the backflow on the boiler to make sure it's up to date.
Okay, so we've heard them testify today about all that, and that doesn't,
Well, nobody talked to the boiler, the backflow preventer on the boiler.
okay,
Also, there was not an inspection done, so no.
okay, okay, does that make the water? Does that make something that you think people shouldn't move back into this apartment?
Absolutely.
If the water's unsafe, that would be my opinion.
Okay, did you go to any of the surrounding areas to find out if their water is unsafe?
Irrelevant.
The surrounding areas have any complaints.
Okay. Do you know how long this water may have worked backwards? If it happens on occasion, or how long?
Only takes a shot glass. Not,
Okay, but do you know whether it's happened earlier in this year?
no.
This attorney is being so scummy. Okay, I am like really getting frustrated with this. Oh, was it enough? It really doesn't take but a couple drops of water. It really doesn't take a lot to contaminate the whole system. You know if it was from earlier or da. Dude, the city, like, they test their water all the time, especially for a municipality when it's like a public works system. It'd be maybe a little different with everyone having their own wells, but if it's run by the city or whatever, yeah, they have to test it all the fucking time. So we would have known, they would have caught that ahead of time if it was contamination from somewhere else. So, and I'm pretty sure Judge Middleton knows all this, but this dude is just, I can't threaten violence on the internet, and it would be theoretical anyways, because I really don't fight with people. I don't like getting into fights. But yeah, I don't know. If you look right there, looks like Judge Middleton's getting a little irritated.
I have no further questions.
You don't need any special tools to undertake a safety inspection.
Pardon?
You don't need any particular special tools to go undertake
No,
a safety
no.
inspection. You could just go out and do it, and
Visual.
if all's good, then we did what we had to do, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, nothing further.
You got me on the road now.
Well, I know it's my chance, but we're short on time here. So thank you for being here and being here all day as well. Anything further?
Yeah, I'd like to call Joe Wiki, please.
Mr. Wiki? Good afternoon, sir. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief? I do. Thank you. Please have a seat. Would you state your name for the record, please, and spell it for us?
Joe Wiki, Wickey,
Your occupation
building official.
for multiple jurisdictions,
Yes,
including Village of Centerville,
yes,
and Cedar.
Thank you. Mr. Wiki, you had not been in this particular building. You didn't go as part of the initial inspection, correct?
I was not, I was out of town last week.
Okay, and so your deputy building official is the one who went in,
That's correct.
and it is now posted as unsafe for occupancy, correct?
That is correct.
And you've heard all of the testimony today.
I have.
And does the building official have the authority to lift a unsafe for occupancy posting?
I do.
How so?
I look at all the other inspections that were done, so I require the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical inspections to sign off on the stuff to make sure that their sections are safe. And at that point, I can do my inspection and I can lift the occupancy stickers.
And based on what you've heard so far today, would all of the apartments be able to be occupied according to your standards?
With inspections, maybe some of them.
Okay.
Some of them obviously need more work.
And you just don't have enough information because our inspectors haven't been in yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions.
So you haven't been in the building, you didn't see any of the damage?
I have not.
You have not been in the building to see any of the repairs?
I have not.
Asked
You've heard
and
testimony
answered.
about the repairs from a master electrician and a licensed plumber,
That's correct.
and you heard the work that they did and the representations they made.
That's correct.
And you heard Ginger Hensley, who's the assistant manager, talk about her unit by unit inspection walkthrough,
That's correct.
testing of electrical systems, appliances. And you've and they have not, or at least not yet, they have not applied for permits.
Okay, this dude, seriously. So the inspector just said, all the plumbing inspector, the electrical inspector, and then now the building inspector, they all have said that they have to go in and visually inspect. So it doesn't matter if a contractor says it's okay or not, or the manager, whatever, that doesn't matter. You can lie about that shit, obviously. Obviously you can lie, so you need the person that is employed to do the inspection. They're the ones that have to sign off on it. And the fact that he's trying to, I don't even know. I don't even know what to call this. He's trying to get around this with whatever his little weak bullshit excuses are. Sorry. I'm getting so irritated with this case.
And effectively, your job starts when permits are requested.
That's correct.
If permits are not requested, does your job start?
It should
Then
be.
if they're doing work without permits, I can tag the job for not having.
There you go.
But typically, you would at least go in and see what's going on before you did that.
It depends. I can stop at the job and I can placard it as stop work order because they're doing work without permits. But that's not the case in every situation.
Do you know whether they're required to have permits?
Yes.
Let's go one by one. Plumbing, why is plumbing required to have a permit?
Just a building. That's the only one that I know.
Just the building permit?
The building permits the one that I do. So I don't know what they are required by them. other
So
than
what do
they
you
just-
require in a building permit? What mechanical or what expertise does building permit fit in?
Because I'm the last one to do the inspection, so I'm the one that gives occupancy. So I have to make sure that they do all their inspections first, and then I'm the last one to sign off on it that says that it's happening. So they can do it.
So you
I
removed
checked.
occupancy, was it on a temporary basis or you just said, no, you can't inhabit this building again?
So this attorney really should have been doing more research. I don't know if he really doesn't know the answer to these questions, but he's had quite a bit, several days to look over this stuff. So he should know. Not sure why and he honestly sounds like he's clueless. So that is just failure on his behalf. Or he's just playing dumb, trying to obscure the situation.
And then at some point, if everybody meets your criteria, then they move back in.
Sure. All they have to do is get the permits and get inspected and wait.
What if they don't need permits?
They're supposed to get permits.
Who's they? The plumbing guys you required to get a permit?
Everybody that's in the trade that's doing the work,
Okay, but even with simple repairs, you don't need permits?
that's up to their discretion. But the building permit, if you're doing alterations, repairs, stuff like that to that building, you are required to get a permit.
Okay, well, let's separate them. Alterations, if they're changing a system.
Repairs. I said alteration, repairs.
No, I know, and I want to go one by
renovations.
one. So repair, so alterations, as far as you can tell, they didn't make any alterations to the way the systems operate.
I don't know.
Okay. If they're not making alterations, they don't need a permit. Is that correct?
If they're repairing it, they still are required to have. a permit.
Why do they need a permit when it's a simple repair?
Because it's the fucking law.
Occupancies, they've revoked occupancy on the building, so in order to give the occupancy back to the building, they need to have it inspected to make sure all the safety things are in place, that all the lighting, the exit lighting, this exit signage, all that stuff stayed where it's supposed to.
So you said they removed occupancy. Are you talking about Mr. Coolman?
That's correct. There is no occupancy of the building.
So he doesn't have any ability to determine permitting or anything like that. He relies on you guys, but you guys are saying, no, it's him
No,
on the occupancy.
no, because under the international.
It's
property
stating the
maintenance
facts.
code, they can't live there because they don't have the required things to stay there, to make it a dwelling.
So the affidavit from Mr. Coolman on why he determined that the occupancy permit should be removed is lack of water, leaking pipes, exposed electrical cords, and use of space heaters for heat and lack of basic necessities. Sounds like from our testimony here that all of those things have been cured.
We don't know. I haven't done inspections.
You don't know, but other people have testified already about it, correct?
No, they did not testify about it already. The contractors did, but none of the inspectors have been out to inspect it. There are not permits pulled to literally do the work. I guess I'm a fairly smart person, but this is definitely not my area of expertise, and even I am able to put those dots together. So this guy, this attorney, is going for some billable hours, I guess. I just know he's pissing me off, and he's probably irritating the hell out of Judge Middleton. And I think he's pissing off the inspector too. Oh, God.
And then for basic necessities, we've heard that it is the ability to prepare food,
Irrelevant.
food prep, bathing, and sleeping. And I suspect it's not listed, but heat certainly would be important. Sure.
If there's a
So when
permit
that is the
inspection
reason for pulling an occupancy permit, you're saying, oh, no, wait a minute, even though those are cured, we have to go through all these other permit phases and I have to deem it appropriate before it goes back into occupancy.
We don't know if those repaired the correct way.
Exactly. That's why you have to get the permit. You get the inspector to come out, then you do the repairs, and then the inspector comes back out. So electrical, mechanical, plumbing, or whatever. So they go back, they said, hey, we inspected it. You call the building inspector, and he comes in and says, yep. Good to go. You've got everything's met. We're good to go. It's simple. It is literally that simple. This landlord literally did not a damn thing right. I don't know if he doesn't know what he's doing, or I have a feeling, and it's my opinion, that he is definitely a shitty landlord and he's trying to do things for as cheap as possible. But that's not happening on this case. He's not going to get away with this.
Okay.
So it's not where you can lift the occupancy on it until we have it inspected. That's the reason for having all the inspections done.
So when this judge is trying to determine whether people move in, your position is that nobody moves in until you have said, hey, all permits are pulled, even though you don't know which ones are needed.
That's the law.
And as long as food prep, sleeping, and bathing are okay, that's not enough. And the fact that the water, pipes, exposed electrical cords, and space heaters have been fixed, that's still not enough.
Because there's no permits, no inspections.
There's stickers on the building.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have
I'm
to
getting
do
so
an
mad.
inspection. In order to do the inspection, I have to have a permit in place that allows me to be on the property to do the inspection.
I guess that's my point. If the electrical guys, the plumbing guys, the master electrician, the licensed people are required to make that determination at the forefront, if they determine they don't need it, why can you unilaterally then shut down and say, no, I'm still not gonna let occupancy in?
And I'm sure they can testify to it as well, that I deal with licensed people every day. Everybody makes mistakes. As far as we catch things that they didn't see or they didn't do, that's the reasoning behind it.
Have you reached out to anybody to say, hey, I'm available to do inspections outside of today?
They are required to reach out to me, but I can't.
Is there any situation in which you would lift the sticker without having full inspected permits done? Is it your position that even if this judge lifts his TRO, you're not going to lift your sticker?
I don't know if I have a choice at that point. I think it's just.
Not until there's an inspection and shit's been done properly.
And you don't even know what needs to be replaced yet, or whether it's been, sounds like it's been replaced already.
Because your client didn't do the right thing.
And you haven't been and inspected the buildings, so you can't say whether something is dangerous or not, or problematic or not.
If there's ceilings falling down, if there's things like that, that is dangerous, but no, I have not been in the building inspected.
Do you know whether the ceiling fell down or whether it's intentionally cut down in order to do the remediation?
I do not know.
So a lot of the information you're relying on is coming not from you, from third parties.
That's correct.
In fact, do you know anything directly on this other than you don't want to lift your sticker?
That they didn't have heat at the moment. They didn't have water. And
They didn't have, is that prior tense or?
that's when we put the stickers on.
Okay, but you don't know whether those have been cured and fixed right now, other than the testimony of the experts who've done.
I do not.
Any more questions?
Mr. Wiki, did the individuals who have testified today contact you?
No.
Did you know who was working on the building?
No.
And you know now who was working on the building?
Know them by today, yes.
And when the sticker was placed, it was really under your authority, but by the alternate building officials, correct?
That's correct.
If somebody disagrees with your opinion or the opinion of electrical or mechanical inspector, is there a method of appeal in the building code?
Construction Board of Appeals.
There's an application available for that?
There is.
Okay, has anybody applied to the Construction Board of Appeals?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you, nothing further.
All right. Me ordered that this building be vacated. When you placard a building like this, placard is the term we use for finding it to be inhabitable. Do you make any provision for the people that are in there?
As far as,
What to do with them?
well, that's where Doug made phone calls and they found them homes, regular places to stay. And
All right, but that's not part of you could placard a building that houses 800 people
that's correct.
and then, sorry, you guys figure out what to do. That's not part of your
It's not.
position.
No.
All right, so this was quote unquote placarded. And now you're saying it needs a number of inspections before you can do your inspection. So what inspections does it need?
So I need the electrical, the mechanical and plumbing to sign off on it, saying that all their parts are safe.
All right, those are two different things. Plumbing is water.
Yep.
All right, so you need a plumbing inspection.
Yes.
And we've got Mr. Belair and Mr. Dougherty. And they are two inspectors.
That do 3 inspections.
All right, now, I'm not done yet. Are they the only inspectors? If they wanted to hire somebody else who was a licensed inspector, could they hire them to come do the inspection?
Not that I'm aware of, because this is our jurisdiction. I don't know.
All right, so they're licensed by the state of
That's
Michigan
correct.
and given a certain region over which they have authority.
That's correct.
All right. Now, plumbing, then you mentioned mechanical,
which for the boiler system.
all right. Which is the same as the public and the plumbing inspector.
That's correct, yeah, that.
How is that boiler heated?
How's it heated?
Yes.
By gas, I assume.
Do you need a gas inspector?
Well, that's part of the mechanical as well. Whether it needs to be inspected, I don't know. That's to their discretion.
All right, so gas connection is part of the pump. We've learned that there is a sprinkler system in the building. Does we need a sprinkler inspection?
That's a mechanical thing too, and they're plumbing in the way. We can have, I believe that can be inspected by a third party, I believe. Just to make sure it's up and operating in the way it's supposed to be, nothing's broken.
Do we need anything else? A radon inspection or an inspection, a mold or air quality
The only
inspection?
other thing would be to get a professional in that does with moisture mold, which I think they already have that, to sign off on it saying that they have checked everything and there's not enough moisture in there, you know, everything's been removed. A professional in that area is what I'm getting.
All right, so we need electrical, plumbing, boiler, sprinkler, mold and air quality inspection. Is there an inspection of the water quality by the health department?
That's up to the health department.
Have they been contacted?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
You weren't the witness.
I don't know.
All right. All right, anybody else?
Not that I'm aware of.
So how long does this take?
So like, for example, my inspection, if they had a permit in place, which I can do permits usually on that day, because it's just a basic permit. All I'm checking for is emergency lighting, make sure everything's in place where it's supposed to be, smoke alarms, whatnot. I can do that inspection the day we issue it. So, and I'm sure, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure it's within a very short time.
The electrical inspector, Mr. Belair, has an opinion that possibly all the wiring that got wet would have to be removed. Every junction box and electrical panel that got wet would have to be removed. It's one thing to inspect, it's another thing to do tens of thousands of dollars worth of repair. So you're assuming all the inspections are going to pass. What if all the electrical boxes need to be replaced? What if all the wiring needs to be removed and replaced? What if they say, in our discretion, we're not approving this, you need to do $100,000 worth of repair? They say, we don't like that, we're gonna appeal that to the zoning board of appeals.
I love that ridiculously.
Next July
estimate.
sometime, we'd have an answer to that question. So what do you do with all the people that are living in the?
I believe, and I don't want to speak for them, but I believe as far as the apartments that was not affected, I don't think there's a problem. As long as we can get the inspections done on those apartments, that people could move back in and just leave the apartments that had to have the work performed on them. To, you know, if bring it all.
Well, you raise a good point, Mr. Wiki. We're painting this painting with one broad brush.
Right.
But there are 24 units, 23 that are occupied. And I summarily, at request of the village, prohibited everybody from living in their apartment, including the ones that didn't have any damage. We learn now there are 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 units that would be in need of some repair. In addition, the wiring in the ceiling, who knows where, got wet. So, but you're saying it could be an apartment by apartment inspection, and some people could be allowed to move in and other people prohibited. All right.
See, that right there sounds totally reasonable and it totally makes sense. that it's not one fell swoop, all or nothing. Which obviously the landlord's attorney didn't even, was trying to paint this all as so bad. It's all this. No, it's not that hard. It's really not. It's really not that hard.
Same question, what do we do with the people that are prohibited? That's a rhetorical question. And as we discussed, this happened over a holiday weekend. People were cold, people were wet, people were out of town, people were gone. The courthouse was closed. Again, I find no fault on the efforts that have been made without an inspection to at least get it to some stable, non-leaking, heated state. This started, I think, maybe before Christmas, but it really started to come to a head on the 26th. And it's now January 4th. So that's 11 days from then till now. And obviously some considerable effort has been made in the meantime. All right, do my questions raise questions for anyone else? Yes.
Mr. Wiki, the judge inquired about some project that may take quite some time. For example, if the electrical inspector said, well, gee, quite a lot of this electrical has to be replaced. Can you issue a temporary occupancy permit based on his information, or would you have to find out from him how bad the danger is?
I can't sign off on it until he signs off his part.
Okay, so if there's a permit pulled potentially, you don't know.
Correct.
Okay.
So in other words, when Ron tells me, like we talk unit by unit, if we go into a unit, it has its own wiring system in it. Ron says it's deemed safe. John says it's deemed safe. Then if I can do my inspection on it, we can undo that apartment and just go to the next one. We can just do the ones that are having the problems.
Okay. All right. So to some extent, then it sounds like you can deal with most of them.
Sure.
If everything is copacetic and as has been testified to, but you're not the one. I mean, you wouldn't rely on the testimony of the contractors. You as the building official have to get the sign-offs from our inspectors, correct? Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Van Eyck?
Thank you. So as I understand what you're saying is that the inspections only need to be for the units that sustain damage.
We can go through and do inspections.
Misstating
on all
the
units,
facts.
and we can release the units that have.
So one of the things that I've seen happen in buildings before with inspections are, wait a minute, we got about 10 feet of wire that have to be cut out, but we now have to replace all of the electric in the entire building, because once you make a repair, somewhere someone comes up with the idea that you have to redo the whole building.
That's not my determinant on that. I don't determine that.
That's the person.
Inspectors.
But we could go on a non-ending battle with whether something is permitted, especially if there's animosity between the city and the apartment complex. Things can go the wrong way. Is that fair to say?
That's where the construction board of appeals comes in, I guess, where you can appeal our decision on those things.
And the The speed of that is, I think the judge said next July. Does that sound accurate to you?
I don't know what it is. I really don't.
So if you walk into unit number 22 and you say there's a cracked light switch plate, that needs to be replaced. And by the way, I'm looking in
Objection,
there, I don't like
irrelevant.
that coax cable, whatever it is, I'm not an electrician. That all needs to be replaced in the whole building. Are we looking at those concerns?
That's up to the electrical inspector. Yeah.
Literally, you can pull electrical for a 24-unit apartment building literally within one
Understood
day.
your testimony to be that you're not going to issue a temporary permit. It's all or nothing. Meaning you're fully repaired, so occupancy is re-given.
Objection,
or
misstates the
You are
facts
not
and
sufficiently
evidence.
repaired, so it's withheld.
No, so it'll only be re-given on the apartments that have no damage or has been fully repaired. And everybody inspected and signed off on
Okay,
those
now,
apartments.
who's going to determine what units were affected and which units were not affected?
If they had no water damage and there's nothing wrong with each apartment, then we'll go through them and release each one.
Well, we've got the
Just a minute,
report.
just a minute. I didn't answer the question. Who makes that determination?
Of which apartments get released.
Yes.
As far as once they sign off on the other two inspectors, and then I do make that
All right,
determination.
so it'd take a total of 3 of you,
That's correct.
the electrical inspector, plumbing, mechanical, and you.
Yes.
We'll set aside the health department and the sprinkler people and many other permitted that may be needed. So there need to be 3 inspections of each individual apartment. Correct?
That's correct.
So here's something, and here's my concern. You say what you're saying, and I appreciate that, but this is the affidavit that was filed to get the search warrant that a water pipe broke in the building and cascaded water all over the complex. I know you don't know,
Sure.
and I'm not asking. But with that statement, who determines whether wiring got water damage and is no longer useful, has to be replaced, versus no, it's fine, it's dry and we're good to go?
If the apartment had no water damage in it, there's no sign of water in the light fixtures, signs in the ceiling, then I don't see why it would be deemed as unsafe because of water damage in another section of the building. We can do the inspection to release that part of that apartment.
So let me back up maybe another step. If this were one unit, the toilet, and put water all over the floor, I anticipate you wouldn't put a no occupancy sticker on.
That's correct. If it
Okay, literally, this attorney is blowing shit way out of proportion. Now he's trying to, if there's a toilet, whatever. Dude, that's not what is being said. Like, that's not even what the fuck is going on right now. He is trying to mislead. I don't know who he thinks he's trying to mislead. If I were the city or whatever, honestly, I'd be asking for sanctions against this guy. I'm not a litigious person in any way, shape, or form. I try to avoid the courts. I don't want nothing to do with it. That's why I don't break laws. But this guy is literally making it worse than it already is. Dude, your client didn't get permits, or contractors didn't get permits, which is on your client, right? They're telling you this is what you need to do to remedy the situation. Quit fucking arguing in court.
If it was just the one unit, it'd be just the one unit, it wouldn't be the entire building, but we didn't know at the time what all was affected.
Well, you had Mr. Coolman walk through it, right?
That's correct.
And he told you on the phone that it's the whole building. I'm presuming that's why you stickered the
That's
whole
correct.
building.
So, right.
And now you've learned that that was not correct.
Well, we didn't know at the time what was broken, what was not broken.
Then, okay, so let's go back to the toilet example. So the toilet spills, water pipe, we get maybe some drywall wet. You said you'd sticker that one versus it just being repaired and back to occupancy.
It depends on the damage. I mean, the reason for this is there's no heat, there was no water there. That was the reason for moving people out.
Okay, so now that's been repaired. We have heat, we have water.
But it has not been inspected.
Okay, but if we have those two things by licensed contractors telling us we have those,
It's not up to
isn't
the
it something where the judge
contractors
can say,
whether
okay,
or
I'm
not
gonna
they
let
can
these people move back
occupy.
in with the exception of a couple
Jesus.
units that sound like work is being done today, drywall work. We move them back in and then the inspections go forward with that process.
That's up to the judge's discretion, I guess, but it's no different than if another scenario, if he was building a house, you still have to have it inspected, even though there's licensed electricians, licensed plumbers, licensed builders, everybody has to be inspected.
Oh, I get a new build, but we're not doing new build. We're trying to get people back into their homes where they live.
Sure. whether they
Jesus,
went in
it's
or
just
remodeled
it's
that,
the same thing.
still have to
It
be
doesn't
inspected.
matter if
If
it's
they're
doing
doing
a
things that
repair or
require
whatever.
That's correct.
I don't have any further questions.
This attorney is literally wasting so much of the court's time.
Thank you, Mr. Ricciardi. You can step down. Anything further?
Your Honor, can I just recall Mr. Belair quickly?
Yes. Mr. Belair, there's no need to re-swear. You're still on your own.
So you've heard Mr. Wiki testify about potentially building or a unit to unit, determining whether each unit would be safe. And
Right.
you've also heard the concern of the defense here that, gee, maybe one unit is unsafe and you're gonna shut down the whole building. Is it feasible to consider that you could go unit to unit?
Absolutely.
And with 24 units, how long do you think it would take to undertake that inspection?
Providing the undamaged units would go very rapidly. Probably a half an hour to do all the undamaged units together.
Okay.
Not half an hour each, half an hour for all of them.
Okay.
See, it really is
An
that
additional
simple.
hour to look at the damaged units. It's not a huge timeline here. And if I can address one of the other attorney's questions, he mentioned the cracked light switch plate and some cables. When we're wanting to do these inspections, we're looking for safety, health hazards. We're not looking for nitpicky little things that are maintenance issues. We're not going to hold occupancy up on a building for a broken switch plate.
Okay.
We're going to hold an occupancy up on a building because the breaker box cover is laying on the floor and there's no screws there and there's exposed live parts, or a child can get electrocuted. Real safety hazards.
And those are the kinds of things we have to rely
Like
on you
you're
to
right.
tell us what's wrong, correct?
That's right.
Okay, nothing further.
Yeah, he just put that other attorney in
So the
his
people that have
place.
already testified that those don't exist, their word isn't any good.
Not to me, it's not.
Okay. So when you say you'll go through the affidavit filed to get this case to where it is, said it was cascading all over the entire building. So where do you start?
I can't answer that question. I wasn't there.
Okay. It's not an affidavit or whatever. It was an ex parte order for a hearing. It's not exactly an affidavit. So he's again misstating the facts. And it goes back to there should have been an immediate inspection by the building inspector. Again, your client didn't do things the right way. So trying to literally nitpick apart every little stupid point, it's his fault. Like, do you not understand that? Like, at this point, you are not going to convince, I don't think, anybody that, you know what, he messed up. We make mistakes. It's fine. Just be like, well, I didn't do it right. I apologize. Let's get this on track. Like, it's that simple. It is literally that simple to remedy the situation. And now there's this jackass lawyer saying all sorts of shit. Oh my God. It really isn't this hard. It doesn't have to be this hard. I just, it doesn't
I
make
know, but you're
sense.
saying you're going to do the inspections and hey, we only go to the damaged units and it'll take us a half hour to do all of the other units. What units are all of the other units that are going to take a half hour total?
The ones that the contractors and your client And Mr. Coolman would specify and say, these units had significant damage, these units had minor damage, and these other units may have had no damage. That
So
would be
you-
how we'd base it.
You heard the testimony of Ms. Hensley, right, where she walked through unit by unit and explained that of the 24 units, 12 were okay, meaning no problems. She had a number of them that had silly problems, meaning nothing related to the water. And she had a total between 3 and 6 units that had water damage and that were repaired. And that may need a delay, including the unit with the dog where they're working on the ceiling today.
Okay. I really think it looks like Judge Middleton's getting irritated, but she's like the assistant building manager. It's already been stated multiple times. It doesn't matter what she says. It doesn't matter what the landlord says. You need the inspectors. They're the ones that make these decisions, right? It's the inspectors. That's literally their job. They come in, they inspect. It's not the contractors that can say, oh, yep, it's good. Because what if you were half-assed contractor, you really didn't know what you were doing, or you were trying to like fleece somebody, whatever. If you know you're not doing things right, you're probably not going to be honest about it. And I'm not saying that's the case, but it's just, dude, this question's been answered. I don't know how many times. It's the inspectors. So you get the building inspector, first person you bring in, he stickers the building, you get the permit or whatever, pull the permit for starting the repair work. You get the plumbing, HVAC, electrical, get them in there, get them starting to pull their permits after you stop the immediate damage. Then you get it done. You have the inspectors come out. Then the building inspector comes out and he's like, yep, good to go. And they're even saying, we'll do it, apartment by apartment. This it's so frustrating what this attorney is doing. He's literally wasting everybody's time because I don't know if he thinks he's trying to be a good attorney. I don't know. I really want to ask this guy, what are you doing? Like, literally, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Because this just makes no sense.
So are you saying you'd be really limited? You're looking at the 3 to 6 units?
That's not what he
I
said.
would want to look at all the units.
Well, then why don't we just grant or walk through now?
Because that's not
and
how
say,
the fuck it
hey,
works.
These units are good. We think that the manager's not going to lie about putting people at risk. They're getting paid regardless. They have insurance. So their job really is trying to get these people into the room. Why don't we take some good faith and then you walk through and say, hey, these half-hour units, we're good.
Because that's not how
And then
it
we work
works.
on the other ones.
As well as I like Mr. Harrison, and he's a fine electrician, everybody makes mistakes. And they're good faith mistakes.
Ding, ding,
It's
ding, ding,
no
ding.
animosity there. They're not doing it intentionally. We catch mistakes every day, overlooks, including Mr. Harrison's work.
Do you do temporary occupancy permits?
Yes, we do.
Do you know whether plumbing does temporary?
I would imagine he does.
Okay, so what's the problem with doing a temporary occupancy permit and fixing the problems later?
Because things
Well,
weren't
that would
done right.
require me to sign off without an inspection, and I would be negligent in my duties. If
Right.
something did happen in the building, then I would be held criminally liable for it.
Okay, what if we set a time frame on it? What if we set, okay, look, you can inspect, the judge says, I'm gonna lift the TRO so long as these inspections, the half-hour inspections are done on the non-problematic units.
I would say that's a great idea.
Okay, and then you have maybe so many more days to complete the inspection on the final units.
I wouldn't even give them a timeline because depending on the amount of damage that was done, and if there is wiring that needs to be replaced or repaired,
Well, the judge is trying to get these people back into their house.
I
So
wholeheartedly
he
agree with
needs to
that.
have some answers on this stuff, and he doesn't know other than what people tell him.
But I haven't been in the building since 2020.
Okay, so you're saying the judge is trying to get people back in their apartments. That's what everyone is doing, dude. It is not like the judge and everyone else is like, everyone wants the same end. They want the same result. Everybody wants to get everything repaired, get it done right, get the inspections passed, get people back into their homes. But he's arguing it like that's not what the situation is. That's why I keep saying It's not that difficult. It really is that simple. You're not competing against each other. You're not on opposite ends. We want to get it done, and royal we. This is why this attorney exasperates me so much. He's like, it's technically he's literally this is a straw man argument that he's doing. I've never used that term before, but that's exactly what this is. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm gonna send him a bill for my high knee pressure from this case.
And the only room I was in then was unit 12.
But you're saying not give a timeline, so how long would it be before we can get
Well,
a?
That's up to your
question is,
contractors.
well, can you do the inspection tomorrow?
I could.
Mr. Doberty,
If
could
there's
you
a
do the
permit in place.
inspection tomorrow?
Well, okay, now there's an exception, if there's a permit in place.
I can't make a legal approval on anything without a permit in
The
place.
judge can order that it be done, and my client is.
No, he
subject to the
cannot.
court's order. So if the judge orders you to do an inspection for him to determine whether he can move these people in, would you do that?
Yeah, I'd have to.
I think the judge would still follow what protocol is that
Ms. Seif, is that-
these permits get pulled.
Only that there was a reference made to gendered paperwork. If that is part of the record here, couldn't you start with that to kind of figure out which ones should be the easy ones to inspect?
I would think so.
Okay, thank you, nothing further.
Mr. Valeri, you're free to step down. I was going to comment. It's been very helpful to have the electrical inspector, the plumbing inspector, the building inspector all here. They've been here all day, not doing their other obligations and duties. But they're the ones that have a lot of ultimate authority. I have the ultimate authority, but I appreciate you gentlemen all being here, hearing the whole body of testimony today and being available because you're also concerned about the residents of this complex. All right, do you have any other evidence you wish to present?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Van Eck?
If I could have just a second. No, you're not.
All right, we've had a number of tenants here. I offered an opportunity on Thursday for anyone to give any evidence or input they wish to. Is there any tenant here in any unit that has anything they wish the court to understand or consider?
I seriously feel so bad for these tenants. I really do.
Good afternoon. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give here will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Have a seat if you would. Would you state your name?
Monica Baker, MONIKA, BAKER,
Ms. Baker, what unit are you in?
number 24.
It's a single unit. Are you the only occupant?
Yeah.
Or what would you like me to know?
Can I use my phone, my notes?
Yes.
I believe that I was the first one who called management that we had a flood in the apartments and in the building.
What day was that?
That was Monday, what is it, 26th?
All right.
And I went to another unit, woke him up, and he knew where to shut off the water.
Who was
day,
that person?
Tom Keith. And that day I got, they sucked up the water from the carpet in my unit, and I got 3 blowers and 1 dehumidifier put in. They were running day and night. Tuesday and Wednesday, we had problems in the building. I called management, I called the emergency. Now all I got a hold of was the answering machine. Nobody called back. Tuesday we
Now,
got,
let me stop you. The 26th, Tuesday is the 27th, Wednesday is the 28th. When you say problems in the building, what do you mean?
There were other leaks coming up in number 13, and she tried, Brianna and Nick, they tried to call, and they wouldn't get no answer.
All right,
And like I said, I had 3 blowers and a humidifier, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They took all out on
Okay, guys,
Wednesday.
I'm just turn off the
except
camera. I gotta
one.
go finish
So
getting
as
the
soon
soup
as
ready,
the,
but I will definitely
sheriff's
be
department
here
came in
watching.
and told me that I had to leave, I called management and I got a hold of him then and told him what was going on. The people with the carpet cleaning or whatever they are, they came in and put 7 blowers into my unit. And they were running day and night for what, over a week. And
so the 26th that started, it came the 27th. So they ran,
until, I think it was 2 days ago.
should be January 2nd.
Day and night.
All right.
And
Now, when you said there were problems in the building, at some point after the 26th, did the heat go out?
the heat went out. They came in and they said the heat is on, and then the heat went out. I did not have any heat until I went to the building every day twice and checked. And I didn't have any heat this morning. And then when I was here, I was informed that I have heat now. And
All right, so you went twice a day. So today's Wednesday.
yeah,
New Year's Day, Sunday, you had no heat?
no, I didn't have no heat until sometime this morning.
All right, January
Today.
2nd, no heat. January 3rd, no heat. And effective, you think today there's heat.
Today, there was no heat when I checked, but then while I was here, I guess it fixed it. I do have heat now.
I really hope Judge Middleton
Okay, go ahead.
charges
My
them the
baseboards are
$1,000
all
whatever
off,
dollars per
and,
day.
The nails are facing up. And they dragged all the installation and drywall into the apartment. And I just wonder who pays the extra expenses.
All right, so the insulation and drywall are just still in the apartment?
Well, it's, they drag them in, but they're going into the apartment and checking whatever they check and,
Oh, you mean they just tracked it in and
Yeah.
out? Okay. All right. Do you have a pet?
no,
Was your apartment damaged?
my apartment was basically underwater, yes.
How deep was the water?
I don't know. It was, I do have pictures of it.
All right, well, it'll be hard to share with everyone. An estimate of how deep it was?
1/4 inch.
Okay. Where have you been staying?
I've been staying at the motel in 3 Rivers, Super 8.
And the United Way or emergency services are paying that?
Yeah,
How about food?
well, I have to go out and sometimes I go to my son's house and go out and buy food.
But nobody's paying for your food?
No. And
All right, anything else you'd like me to know?
well, all those blowers were going 24/7.
I seriously hope that this landlord has to
Oh, you're
pay,
wondering who's gonna pay your
has to
electric bill?
reimburse these
I
folks.
don't know the answer to that, but
Okay.
it ran through your meter.
Right.
That can surely be worked out. Or anything else?
And the only thing that I see right now is, the baseboards have to be put back up.
Do you want to move back into your apartment?
If it is safe, yeah.
All right, I asked her up to share anything she wanted to say. Does anybody have any questions for her?
No, Your Honor.
Briefly, Ms. Baker, you said your heat was not on this morning. Did you call that in and let the management know?
I called that in yesterday. And I was told, they called me, whoever the service is, and they said they're gonna be there this morning between 8 and 10. I was there at 8:15 and the heat wasn't on.
Okay.
And then I was here and I was informed that the heat is working now. And
Did they tell you that there was air in the lines that they had to purge? And as a result?
no, I just heard that the heat was on now.
Yeah, but they responded to your phone call and responded quickly to try and fix the problem for your heat.
Trying to fix the problem, yes.
Correct. I have no further questions.
Thank you. You can step down.
Thank you.
And are there any other tenants that wish to provide any information? Yeah, all right. Good afternoon once again. Did you work last night?
Straight from there to here.
You're gonna be awful tired tonight. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm any testimony you're about to give here will be true to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
once again, will you state your name for the record?
About Rico, EAB, Rico, LEKO,
All right, and your unit?
20.
Have a seat. You were here last Thursday and provided some input.
Yes,
What is your current status?
my current status, I was unable to get shelter at that time. Due to I have a small dog, and the shelters that were provided were not taken. So I had to refer to my renter's insurance, which is against me now. And they just sent me a letter about the deductible. They'll be letting me know how much that is. And then they just sent me a text where we're here this morning. Because that time allowance that they gave me was till this morning at 11 o'clock to get out of the hotel. And if I needed more time, I need to let them know so they can relook at my claim.
This is an absolute nightmare for this poor lady.
Where have you been staying?
Sturgis, the Holiday Inn.
Who put you up there?
That was my.
Oh, your renter's
yeah,
insurance?
the renter's insurance.
You've been able to take your dog?
Yes,
Have you been back to your unit?
yes.
Do you have heat?
I was back there this morning when they were doing the walkthrough on what they were going to start doing, going forward about the drywall and that. I was walking by when they were going through the units and talking about what they're going to do from here on out.
But did you have heat?
Yes, I have heat right up.
And what's the other condition of your apartment at this time?
Right now, my apartment's fine. But after the testimonies that I've heard today and nonsense of emergency from the management.
I really am here, guys.
concerned For myself, my animal and my tenants, because a lot of my tenants are elderly and they have walkers and that, and there's carpet ripped up and we have uneven surfaces. And if they have to get out real quick, that's not gonna happen. That will be something that they can do and it could be a trip hazard. Along with like my neighbor next door, we got water that went out on Monday and then hers didn't happen until Wednesday. So it happened throughout the week. And the only reason why.
So some people got flooded on the 26th, other people got
On
flooded on
Tuesday instead of on
Tuesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, this
So it
just
kept
got way
happening
worse.
because We were still cold during that time. I believe it was.
This is why that landlord's scum, and he didn't do shit right, and he should have.
So, just
All
like
of this is
the
on
sense of
him.
urgency that there was spoke of, that we were contacted, we were taken care of in a timely manner, when we were contacted, I got a text early in the morning, saying that the water was off, never continued, or it was still off throughout the day. And then later in the evening, I get a knock at the door from the management, Ginger, and the gentleman there. And they told me, they gave me a couple of gallons of water. I told them I wasn't feeling well. That's not acceptable, and they're like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna pull the plumbers. I said, please, I yelled at them. I said, please don't leave us like this. We pay our rent. I paid my rent early every month, always early and on time, I said, you should be getting, basic. I should be getting electricity, water, heat,
Well, your testimony cuts both ways. One, you want to go back in.
right after.
And
I
B, what
hearing-
you're telling me is the
After
place
hearing-
isn't safe to go back in.
Right,
which
after
would-
hearing the testimony today, because after hearing the testimony today, if we have somebody that, a tenant that has work being done in that, and it could happen to my unit, I won't know, and I work third shift, so, just like I got woken up, I won't know till something happens to my unit, and just because, like my neighbor across the hall, her unit happened later, so who's to say, if we don't get inspected, to make sure it's safe, even if we go back in there and we're okay for right now, we don't know what tomorrow is. We don't know what the next day
No, we
is.
certainly don't.
So if we go
But what do
back,
you want? You want to go back in?
I
or
want to
you-
go back in when it, like the other tenant, when it's safe. But I want to go back, but I do want to be safe. I don't want to have to be back in the situation again or something worse.
You've raised a point that was touched on a little bit. For those units that have renter's insurance, this is a event that was not of your making. And you make a claim with your renter's insurance and there's a deductible. And making a claim on your renter's insurance may make your renter's insurance go up. And so of the 23 occupants, I don't know how many did have renter's insurance, how many did not. Those that,
Gentleman over there has renter's insurance.
all right, well, those that make a claim have another set of resources, but it's gonna cost them in the long run. Those that didn't have any resources. Kelly Hosteller from United Way was here. She sent me a text and said, I have water problems at my own house, and showed me a picture that they've dug a big hole next to the side of her house. So she is dealing with her own water problems and apologized for not being here. But it's those agencies that made provisions for people that did not have a backup plan. And you don't have a backup plan. You don't know where you're gonna sleep tonight.
Not right now.
All right, does that raise questions for anyone?
Mm,
All right, thank you. Any other tenant or anyone that wants to offer any input here? No one wished this to happen. If you lived in Jackson, Mississippi, the water system is tens of $millions in need of repair, and it broke.
So if you don't know, if you weren't aware what happened in Jackson, Mississippi this last year, they literally dried out. They had zero water. Their shit was evaporated, like it was gone. So they had no water. I don't know if it was just because of drought or whatever, but I've heard from people that that's actually happens a lot. So that may or may not be a system problem. He's talking about Jackson, Mississippi. Well, we have Flint here in Michigan that they still haven't fixed the system. So they still have to drink and bathe. They can't use their tap water. So yeah, I don't know. It's a clusterfuck for sure. And it's
During the cold weather, and people in Jackson, Mississippi didn't have any water. They still don't have very good water. I think the population was not as big as I thought it was, less than 100,000.
Flint, Michigan.
So do they say no one can live in their house. This is a much smaller.
I did not know that.
This apartment complex company didn't wish this to happen.
I need to do some
It was
research
very,
into
very,
that.
Very cold, very, very, very windy. And these pipes froze. Now, it isn't as cold as it gets. I don't even believe it got below zero, maybe a little bit. But wind blowing about 50 miles an hour, I think, contributed to it. It was a very unpleasant 5 to 7 days there. So they're no bad guys. They didn't like purposely sabotage everybody's apartment. Hindsight is great. They tried to address it, I think, before they really understood the scope of the problem. And so here we are. So I issued the order, and hearing the testimony I just heard reinforced my feeling that I should have reissued the order. People still had no heat up until today. But the holidays are over. We're through with holiday travel between Christmas and New Year's. New Year's Day is over. New Year's Eve is over. The weekend is over. We're back to business as usual. Everybody has made an effort to rectify this. It looks like we can get some of the tenants back.
We passed
in.
inspection by Fritz.
Question still remains, what do we do with the ones that can't go in? And who's paying for this? The individual tenants are not parties here. The parties are the Village of Centerville and Centerville Investments LLC, who owns the property. The tenants are the victims of this and are subject to my order. That's why I thought anybody that wanted to say anything who was a tenant ought to at least have an opportunity to be heard. So Ms. Sieber, I'll go to you first, and then Mr. Van Eck. What are you asking for on behalf of the village?
So what the village is requesting is that the inspectors all be permitted to go in, undertake inspections of each of the units, and determine whether some or all of them are safe for occupancy, and then to allow the building official to make the occupancy calls. The timeliness of inspections, obviously, they can be done tomorrow. It's possible some of these people could be back in. And to the extent that the court has ordered a temporary restraining order, it's really as to the property owner that the individual tenants were told to get, we're told to get out, but they, I guess, can decide if they feel that it's okay to stay there until the inspections are made, that's, just, it would be a violation certainly of the notice that Mr. Wiki has put up. So I think what we could do is we can certainly fashion some kind of a remedy that includes inspections and then allows us to determine what units are still required to be posted as unsafe for occupancy. In other words, allow us to do a unit by unit inspection rather than having to take the whole building or keep the whole building as a non-occupiable building at this time.
Well, I take it from sworn testimony that the heat is on, and so that's a plus. Next is there's water in the potable water pipes, so they can flush a toilet, they can take a shower.
And just so everyone knows, the temperatures have been like in the 40s and 50s
Drinking, but,
since
there's
Friday
water.
here
So we
in
have
Michigan,
heat and
so it's
and
not going to freeze anytime soon.
And I think that Mr. Van Eck is going to agree, at least we can get the people where there aren't an issue back into the units as soon as possible. Mr. Van Eck, what's your position?
My understanding from Ms. Hensley's testimony is that of the 24 units, she had 4 with remaining concerns. I did hear a number from the testimony that I think we need to clarify. I heard a number of 6, but I think of the 6, 2 have been rectified, so we're at 4 that are issues. I think one is a real issue, as they were cutting out ceiling yet today, which means they'll have to repair the
Objection,
drywall and do all
misstating the
that.
facts
My
and
understanding of that
evidence.
unit is that the rest of it is okay, outside of removing that wet drywall and ceiling, but certainly that's one unit, but it's our position that the remainder of the units are ready for occupancy. And talked with my client, if there are gonna be a walkthrough to determine whether they're safe enough to be occupied. My client would prefer that all inspectors go through together to get it done as expeditiously as we can. And I think that criteria is different than a code enforcement criteria. I think it's a safety check. Now, sometimes.
Okay, if your client had done things the right way from the beginning, there wouldn't be this crisis thing. Like, this would be, like, basically taken care of. This is all on your client, dude. Like, you're not passing the buck here. This is on your client not doing the right thing from the beginning. And if he didn't know it's not the right thing, then he needs to learn if he's going to sit here and like own buildings and have them with tenants.
Sometimes it's tough to differentiate between the code and the safety check. I certainly respect that, but sometimes it's not. I mean, there's some things that we say, oh, it could happen. I think some of the questions were what could happen. And I think really the question is what is likely to happen. I think when you determine what's likely to happen, they're not going to find any problems with the units. With the 4 units, I think what happens is the inspectors need to identify specifically what they think needs to be done in order to meet the criteria. And that ought to be quick. And then once those things are done, the tenants can then have occupancy back. And then we can deal with the various code issues that may pop up, may or may not pop up. And we just don't know. It's an unknown right now, but let our licensed contractors ponder that. Again, as the courts indicated, this was an emergency deal. Like my client has moved at lightning pace.
Okay, bullshit. So you want to deal with the, what did he call it? The code stuff later, right? No, if it's not up to code, you can't live there. That's what they have all said. You cannot pass any inspection without code being met, without the permits, and without inspection. So you're literally trying to do this in the wrong order. It's been stated multiple times that's not how this works. And for him to sit here and say, oh, my client's moving is expeditiously, no. This happened on December 26th. It is now January 4th. This whole time, you should have been pulling permits. Like, I get it, it's an emergency. You start pulling those permits right away. What, the one HVAC guy said he didn't get a call until yesterday? He got his first call yesterday. So no, your client has not been doing what he's supposed to be doing. He is trying to skirt around the rules and everything that's required, which this absolutely, in my book, in my opinion, makes him a slumlord. And I am going to keep saying that probably until the bitter end, unless he turns his act around.
I know people have been aggressive in their comments about them. I would disagree. I represent a tremendous number of apartment complexes, and this was lightning speed with the extent of what happened.
So this is what he does for a living? Really? You are just
maybe some leaking occurring.
You're a bad attorney.
I think the testimony is borne out that there's no evidence of that. I think it really started on the 26th, and on the 26th, my client was there. Ginger testified that on that day, she was contacting experts. So, you know, I think we can give some good faith to my client. I think they can say, yeah, we think it's safe and permit this matter to go forward. I think their contractors who testified all felt that was safe. So I'm okay with the inspection.
It's not up to the contractors whether or not it's safe for occupancy. It's been stated multiple times.
And then with the 4 units, if they can put their heads together, identify, be forward thinking, be goal thinking, moving the tenants back in thinking, I think this will be behind us.
That's what everybody
Seems
wants.
like there's a
Everyone
lot
wants
in
tenants
front of us
back
that
in,
we can-
but your client
So I
sucks.
think the court's looking for
Didn't do
something
it right.
specific. Our specific is, let's do the half-hour inspections prepared today or tomorrow. Get those done, get the approvals on the 4 units, get a determination what needs to be done with specificity. And then set criteria that once that's done, we'll again do quick inspections. Once that's verified, then we can deal with whatever other matters we need to. The TRO can be lifted.
All right. Anything further, Roxanne?
No, Your Honor.
Well, I thank the inspectors for being here. All 3 of them indicated they could do this tomorrow. So I don't need a permit to be requested. They may need to pay for it, the permit. But I'm gonna order that all 3
He
mechanical,
needs to pay for more than just the permit.
plumbing, electrical, and the building inspectors inspect these premises tomorrow. I will give the discretion to Joe Wiki, the building inspector, to lift the occupancy ban on any of the apartments that he feels it's appropriate to lift, which may be as many as 24, maybe something less than that. I'm still concerned about the 4 people that are out, but nobody's willing to sign off on anything until they inspect it. And I don't fault them for that.
And that's how it works.
Their reputation is on the line. And it's a matter of public safety. We didn't get into whether the water city system, hopefully that's not an issue, but I'm not sure, but Mr. Daubertine, I think, is qualified to make that inspection. Probably should also have the city water department there tomorrow. I'd like you to all be there starting tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Do an inspection of these premises. Again, Mr. Wiki has the authority to lift the non-occupancy provision of my order. And then it will continue as to the other units. I'm looking for our next date. And because of those holidays, I've been here. I didn't take any time off other than the regular holidays. But we're crammed full of matters that need to be addressed by a judge. I'm gone to be an instructor at New Judge School on January 12th.
Judge school,
For a period after that.
judge school. I kind of want to go. It's kind of cool.
Today is the 4th. Friday is full. Monday is full. Holy smokes. Tuesday is full. So I would make the big bucks. So expect us to be here and. All right. And you guys aren't just sitting around waiting for something to happen either. You've got your own busy calendars, so I don't want to make it sound like it's all about me. And I do appreciate what people have done to this extent. Every minute of Wednesday, the 11th is filled from 8:15 to 4:30. I'm gone to 12. Gee whiz.
Someone get that man a Halls.
Well, if necessary, I can make emergency time on Tuesday, January 10th in the afternoon after 2:30. So let's recap. Roxanne, I'll ask you to do the order. Temporary restraining order remains in effect as to all units. The named inspectors, including the city water department, are ordered to be there. at the
Seriously, someone
complex
get
at
that man a
8:30
Halls
to
and
start
some
the
water,
unit
man.
inspections. The building inspector, Joe Wiki, has the authority to lift the non-occupancy provision for which units he feels are appropriate. Court will be available after 2:30, let's just say 3 o'clock on January 10th, if further hearing is needed. And again, my order doesn't make any provision for the 4 folks that are still out. And my great thanks to Victim Services, Aaron Goff and Sheriff's Department Emergency Services, and Kelly Hosteller. There's this zoning component of it. I'm gonna be dealing with the landlord tenant components of this probably for a while. This complex, they would say, yes, I like it there a lot. It's all on one floor. It's got a nice park.